We are in for a treat, Charlotte. I'm so happy to be able to visit the bunny trail and where nature and gardening meet your fantasy world and your love of Beatrix Potter and the books. Tell us a little bit about how this came to be.
Well, I have two granddaughters. Their names are Sadie and Selah, and they're 6 and 12, and they live a couple of streets over. When the oldest one was about 4, I just sort of decided to utilize this little trail through the woods, and I called it my bunny trail. It's just full of nature back in here. You know, the children, the neighborhood children, my children from my Sunday school classes are always welcome to come down the bunny trail, and I'll tell them some of the tales of Beatrix Potter. You know, the most common one being Peter Rabbit, but the Flopsy bunnies and Squirrel Nutkin, that naughty little squirrel, and his
So I noticed when we get in there that the beds are really wide, and how you said you don't fight nature.
Right. I said in the wide areas you have room for your shrubs and things to grow. There's so many Lenten roses back there that just love to reproduce, and in the spring they're just full of flowers.
There's some other wildflowers that are back there as well, right?
Right. There's probably a good 100 varieties of wildflowers in my backyard. That's always been a favorite hobby of mine ever since I was a child, and I was a science teacher at one time. And I'm sorry we missed most of those, but the last blooming one is just started opening, which is an Indian paintbrush. There is a huge stand of giant Solomon seal that just planted itself. Of course, it's been blooming for a long time, but it lasts for a long time. We have a woodland backyard. The woods just wants to creep into your yard. And the wall provides a barrier from all just the woodland things that grow and spread. It's one of my favorite things. It's just the backdrop to the woodland garden, and it serves a purpose too.
Charlotte, I noticed you had some azaleas in the deep garden in there.
I do. In fact, there's several kinds. Most of them are just the standard azaleas, and they've been planted for 30 years also. And I did try an encore azalea, but I did discover they do not like the same conditions as a regular one. They too much sun, I can't grow them. But what I've been enjoying lately are the native azaleas that we were able to transplant from quite a bit of acreage that my sister-in-law has in Camden, Tennessee. And I've got them placed, I think, in just the right light because they were beautiful this year. There's probably 3 or 4 of those back there too, along with the rhododendrons.
And what about that beautiful moss walkway? And there was a special kind of stone that hard to see now with all the moss.
That's sort of how I discovered the Jones stone anyway, is I was looking for flat stones to make the walkway. They're coconita stones, and they're real flat, and they're pink.
Are those native to Tennessee?
They are not native to Tennessee.
Okay.
There's some other stones around the water feature that's more limestone, which is native, but that was put in later. It was like the stone has evolved because, you know, I just believe in not fighting Mother Nature.
Yes.
And where
it's easier on you that way, isn't it?
Right. So when it became evident where we were walking, and it was too shady for grass, so we laid the stone walks, and the moss just sort of came because the growing condition was perfect for it.
Well, I think it's wonderful.
I mean, it's just soft, you know, you can sit down on it. It's very pretty. And, you know, sometimes you can take a piece off and just mash it somewhere else if you want it.
So the bunny trail, the story is which story from Beatrix Potter?
Well,
is it
it's not
a blend of all of them?
It's a blend of all the stories.
Okay.
It's the way it is, the more common stories, that especially the ones that occur in the woodland settings. You know, she was quite the conservationist in her time. Not only was she an artist.
You were mentioning the year she was born, or was that the year that she passed away?
I believe she was born in 1902, and, you know, we recognize her most famous tale of Peter Rabbit, still the second biggest seller in children's books with the biggest sales, but there's a lot of the other stories are really cute. And so I have a big book of the tale of Beatrix Potter. When children come to visit, they'll sit down and I'll tell them about Squirrel Nutkin, or, you know, the Flopsy bunnies and Peter Rabbit, and then we talk about the creatures in my backyard, which are a whole lot. We've had a family of a raccoon and 5 babies she raised in a hole under the playhouse up there. They were
wonderful, huh?
They were quite humorous to watch, you know, her teach them to climb in the trees.
Well, Charlotte, I think my granddaughters would love to walk through this bunny trail, and I want to thank you for sharing it with our viewers today.
Well, I am so glad to do it. It just makes me happy So.
And before we cut away, I want to show Spot what's in your hand.
Well, this is Dot here.
Oh, Dot, not Spot.
Dot. I know, probably 10 or 12 years ago, a big turtle meandered down. I put a 4 on his back. A few years later, I found 2 more, and I put 2 and 3 on their back. We called them Twosie and Threesie. And then a year or so after that, here came another one, so that became 5Z. Last year, my husband found one playing in the flocks that was quite a bit smaller, and we put a 1 on his back. Well, about a month ago, this little bitty one was crawling across the bunny trail right here in the beginning, and I put a dot on his back, and my 6-year-old granddaughter insisted he needed a number, so we call him Havesy. So I hadn't seen Havesy until we picked him up just now at the entrance to the bunny trail. Well, so I guess Havesy wanted to be on the volunteer gardener with us.
Well, it's a perfect blend with nature and your foliage and your wonderful storytelling. Thank you, Charlotte.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here to share it with me today.
For inspiring garden tours, growing tips, and garden projects, visit our website at volunteergardener.org or on YouTube at the Volunteer Gardener channel, and like us on Facebook.